Every civilization that tried to open the tomb disappeared. The strange part wasn't that they failed. It was that the tomb remembered every one of them. The wind moved across the desert like a living thing, carrying thin streams of silver dust over the endless black dunes of Keros 4. Under the pale light of twin moons, the landscape looked frozen in time, untouched for thousands of years. Ethan Walker stood at the edge of the excavation platform with his hands buried inside the pockets of his weatherproof jacket, staring at the structure emerging from beneath the sand. Even after 6 months on the project, the sight still unsettled him. The tomb was enormous, nearly half a mile wide according to the latest scans. Its dark metallic surface reflected almost no light, as if the material itself absorbed the glow of the stars. Ancient geometric patterns stretched across its exposed walls, precise and symmetrical despite being older than recorded galactic history. Behind Ethan, hundreds of floodlights illuminated the dig site. Heavy machinery rumbled in the distance. Cargo drones floated overhead carrying equipment between temporary research stations. Yet the tomb somehow made all of it feel small. You're staring at it again. Ethan turned toward the familiar voice. Lysera Vaughn approached through the dust, her teal skin glowing faintly beneath the work lights. A tablet rested under one arm, while her golden eyes remained fixed on the massive structure. Just thinking, Ethan said. That usually gets humans into trouble. A faint smile appeared on his face. And archaeologists. Lysera stopped beside him. For a moment neither spoke. The tomb dominated the horizon. Silent. Motionless. Watching. At least that was how it always felt. The council sent another warning. Lysera finally said. They want us to suspend excavation until more military support arrives. Ethan sighed. That makes what, the 5th warning this month? The 7th. They're getting nervous. Wouldn't you? Lysera looked toward the structure. Every expedition before ours ended the same way. Equipment failure. Missing personnel. Entire teams abandoning their research with no explanation. Ethan folded his arms. You still think something is inside. I think something is waiting. The words lingered in the air between them. Far across the site, warning lights flashed atop a sensor tower. Workers moved between temporary shelters as temperatures continued to fall. Night on Keros 4 came fast and cold. Ethan checked his wrist display. 23 degrees Fahrenheit and dropping. You know, he said, back on Earth there's an old saying. Lysera glanced at him. I'm afraid to ask. If everybody avoids one door, eventually someone gets curious enough to open it. Humans. Ethan laughed quietly. Guilty. Before Lysera could reply, a sharp tone echoed from the command center. Then another. Several researchers suddenly rushed toward the central monitoring station. Voices rose. Excitement replaced routine. Ethan immediately recognized the look on their faces. Something had happened. He and Lysera exchanged a glance before hurrying across the platform. Inside the command center, holographic displays filled the air. Streams of data scrolled faster than technicians could read them. One of the senior analysts looked up as Ethan entered. The woman's face had gone completely pale. You need to see this. Ethan stepped closer. What happened? The analyst enlarged a three-dimensional image of the tomb. A section near its northern face glowed bright blue. 5 minutes ago, we detected an energy fluctuation beneath the outer shell. A power source? Ethan asked. That's what we thought. The analyst swallowed. Then it moved. The room fell silent. Ethan stared at the display. The glowing signal traveled slowly through the structure like a pulse moving through veins. Not random. Not mechanical failure. Purposeful. Lysera's voice became almost a whisper. The tomb is active. Another alarm sounded. This one deeper. Louder. Every screen in the room flickered simultaneously. For a brief second, all incoming data vanished. Then the central display changed. The holographic model disappeared entirely. In its place appeared a single symbol. None of the researchers recognized it. Yet everyone felt the same thing. A strange pressure in the room. As though something impossibly old had just opened its eyes. Ethan felt a chill run through him. Not from the cold. The symbol remained visible for 3 long seconds before every monitor abruptly returned to normal. The alarm stopped. The signal vanished. Silence swallowed the room. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Finally, one technician broke the silence. Did anyone record that? Another researcher slowly shook his head. The system erased everything. Ethan looked toward the dark outline of the tomb beyond the command center windows. The structure stood exactly as before. Motionless. Ancient. Impossible. Yet for the first time since arriving on Keros 4, he no longer felt like they were studying the tomb. He felt like the tomb had started studying them. The outer rim of the tomb loomed closer as Ethan adjusted the straps on his backpack, making sure the environmental sensors were aligned and the portable lights powered. Each step onto the metallic walkway sent a faint vibration through the floor, humming in response to his weight. Dust motes, illuminated by the glow of his helmet lights, danced lazily in the air, swirling around his boots with every movement. The air inside the tomb was dry and carried a faint metallic scent, like ancient circuits that had not been touched in centuries. Ethan's breath formed small clouds as he exhaled, and the temperature displayed on his wrist monitor read 54 degrees Fahrenheit, unusually warm compared to the freezing night outside. Lysera followed closely, her eyes scanning the walls, tracing the geometric patterns that twisted and turned, impossible angles that seemed designed to confound the eye. "Do you ever get the feeling that it is watching?" she asked quietly, the golden light from her tablet reflecting off her skin and casting elongated shadows across the angular corridor. Ethan nodded slightly, feeling a prickling sensation along the back of his neck. "Yes," he admitted, "and it is not exactly subtle about it." The echo of his boots in the cavernous space seemed to answer him, carrying a resonance that sounded almost deliberate. He moved toward a central chamber, the floor sloping slightly downwards, and the walls narrowing, forcing the pair to walk side by side. Along the sides of the corridor, recessed panels glimmered faintly, their surfaces etched with alien script that pulsed intermittently, as if acknowledging his presence. Ethan paused, kneeling to run a gloved hand over one of the panels. The surface was smooth and cool, almost alive under his touch. A faint hum filled the space, subtle at first, and then growing, harmonizing with the vibrations under his feet. Lysera stepped closer, her voice low and steady. The sensors indicate no power source, yet it is clearly activating in response to him. Ethan stood, brushing off the sleeve of his jacket. "It recognizes something," he said, glancing around the chamber. The ceiling was impossibly high, adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to depict a history of a civilization long lost. Shapes of beings and machines intertwined, a tapestry of light and shadow that suggested both intelligence and artistry beyond human understanding. As they advanced, a doorway appeared ahead, perfectly sealed, with no visible handle or mechanism. Ethan paused before it, placing his hand against the surface. The panel beneath his palm glowed softly, contours lighting up as if scanning him. Lysera's eyes widened slightly. "It is not opening for us," she murmured. "Only him." A soft mechanical whir echoed as the doorway slid open silently, revealing a vast chamber beyond, filled with towering structures that radiated a faint luminescence. Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. Behind him, Lysera followed, keeping a careful distance while recording data and observing every movement. The floor of the chamber responded to Ethan's presence, subtle pressure plates shifting underfoot and illuminating patterns that seemed to guide him along a path. Panels and carvings flared briefly as he passed, each interaction precise and deliberate. The hum within the tomb grew louder, resonating with a tone that seemed to welcome rather than threaten. Ethan glanced back at Lysera, who gave a slight nod, her expression a mixture of awe and cautious respect. "It is acknowledging you," she said quietly. "Or perhaps it is testing you." He continued forward, aware of the centuries of history pressing down in silence, aware that each step might reveal the secrets hidden within the ancient walls. The chamber stretched on, an endless expanse of art and architecture, yet every movement felt intimate, as though the tomb itself was observing, understanding, and silently judging. Ethan's pulse quickened, not from fear, but from the realization that he was no longer just exploring. He was being acknowledged. He was being measured, and in some quiet, mechanical way, he felt a sense of recognition, as if the tomb itself had paused to consider him and decided he belonged within its silent corridors. The chamber expanded into a seemingly endless hall, the walls etched with alien symbols that pulsed faintly as Ethan advanced, casting a soft light over the floor that rippled like liquid metal beneath his boots. Every step he took was mirrored by subtle changes in the environment, as if the structure itself responded to his presence, guiding him deeper into its heart. Lysera followed silently, her golden eyes tracking each movement, her hand occasionally brushing against a scanner panel that flickered to life with delicate blue light at her touch. The air was still, yet carried a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through Ethan's chest and settle into his core, an ancient cadence that synchronized with his heartbeat. He paused before a massive doorway, its surface covered in intricate reliefs that depicted humanoid figures interacting with geometric constructs and floating orbs of light. Ethan ran his gloved hand along the carvings, feeling the grooves and ridges, sensing a rhythm that was more than decoration. The doorway responded to his touch, opening slowly with a whisper of displaced air, revealing a smaller chamber bathed in pale luminescence. Within, structures resembling consoles and pedestals rose from the floor, etched with patterns that suggested both functionality and artistry. Ethan stepped inside, and the floor beneath him adjusted, tiles shifting imperceptibly to accommodate his weight, aligning perfectly with a set of symbols that glowed brighter as he moved. Lysera stopped at the threshold, her voice calm but tinged with awe. "It is as if the place knows you, as if it has waited." Ethan nodded, taking a careful breath and scanning the walls. The light from the symbols seemed to form a subtle pathway, leading him to a pedestal at the center of the chamber. As he approached, a faint vibration traveled up through his feet, and a soft voice, synthesized yet resonant, echoed through the space. "Ethan Walker, you are recognized." He froze, scanning the room for speakers, but there were none visible. Lysera's hand rested briefly on his shoulder. "It speaks," she whispered, a note of disbelief in her tone. Ethan exhaled slowly, moving closer to the pedestal. Tiny lights traced the carvings on its surface, responding to his approach, creating patterns that reminded him of constellations. He could feel the energy from the tomb flowing toward him, gentle yet commanding, as if urging him forward. He placed both hands on the pedestal, and the glow intensified, bathing the chamber in a soft, golden hue. Symbols across the walls animated, forming sequences that Ethan could not comprehend but felt intimately, as if memories not his own brushed against his mind. Lysera stepped beside him, her voice calm. "It is testing you, not for strength, but for understanding, for judgment of character." Ethan focused, allowing the hum and rhythm of the chamber to fill his awareness. Each pattern of light, each subtle pulse, seemed to measure his intentions, his restraint, his ability to act with thoughtfulness and care. A gentle pressure formed around him, a spatial awareness that shifted and flowed in response to his smallest movements, guiding him along the path of recognition. The room seemed alive with a silent intelligence, ancient and patient. Ethan felt a connection forming, tenuous yet undeniable, as if the tomb itself acknowledged his presence and allowed him passage where others had failed. Lysera observed quietly, understanding that nothing in her previous studies had prepared her for this moment. The symbols continued to dance and respond to Ethan's choices, not with words, but with light, vibration, and resonance. He moved deliberately, each step precise, mindful, and aware of the weight of being observed by something beyond human comprehension. For the first time, he felt that he was not intruding. He was being accepted. The chamber walls seemed to shift subtly as Ethan and Lysera advanced, the glowing symbols reacting to their presence like a heartbeat spreading through the structure. Light patterns traced across the floors and pillars, guiding Ethan toward a central dais that rose several feet above the polished metallic floor. The air carried a gentle vibration, a rhythm that resonated with his own heartbeat, making each step feel deliberate, measured, and yet natural within this ancient space. Lysera followed closely, her gaze scanning the carvings and the light flows, recording everything, but she also sensed the quiet sentience within the tomb, a presence that was observing, evaluating, and acknowledging without words. As Ethan approached the dais, the air grew warmer, though still cool compared to the desert outside, and the luminescence of the chamber intensified, casting soft shadows that moved as if alive. Panels along the walls shifted orientation, revealing recessed compartments with etched hieroglyphs and holographic-like projections that sparked briefly into form, creating a delicate lattice of light around him. Ethan placed his hand on the edge of the dais, and the glow responded immediately, spreading in concentric circles across the floor, outlining a path forward. The hum in the chamber deepened, vibrating through his boots, rising through his legs, and settling in his chest, synchronizing with each breath. He stepped onto the dais fully, and the pathway of light led him to a console embedded with alien crystal that seemed to pulse with recognition. Lysera approached the dais, her voice soft yet steady. "It is calling you forward. Not as an intruder, but as one it seeks. Ethan looked around the chamber, every structure, every light, every subtle movement confirming that the tomb was active, intelligent, and responsive. He reached out to touch the console, feeling a vibration under his fingertips, a soft pulse that seemed to communicate through resonance rather than sound. Symbols floated into the air, forming patterns that shifted in time with the chamber's hum, as if drawing attention to his actions, affirming them. Lysera stepped closer, her hand brushing lightly against his arm in a gesture of both caution and reassurance. The symbols continued to morph, displaying sequences of events, cycles of energy, and abstract forms of communication that Ethan could not yet interpret, but sensed the coherence and purpose behind them. A soft, synthetic voice echoed through the space, low and melodic, stating simply, "Proceed." Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling a mixture of awe and calm determination as he moved further into the chamber, following the patterns of light and responding instinctively to their subtle cues. The floor adjusted under his feet, the panels rising and falling gently, guiding him along a path only he could navigate. Lysera observed silently, aware that each step Ethan took brought them closer to the core of the tomb's intelligence. The hum, the lights, the shifting floors, and the soft acknowledgement from the voice created a rhythm that made the chamber feel alive, alive in a way that was conscious yet benevolent. Ethan's awareness expanded, sensing the tomb's presence not as a threat, but as a guide, a careful sentinel that tested understanding, patience, and respect. Each symbol, each pulse of light, seemed to measure more than action. It measured intention, thoughtfulness, and harmony with the ancient intelligence that filled the chamber. The air was dense with anticipation, yet it was quiet, deliberate, and patient, allowing Ethan to move with awareness, to learn from the responses of the tomb, and to feel a growing sense of belonging within the space that had waited so long for recognition. Lysera's eyes remained on him, her expression a mixture of curiosity, respect, and quiet astonishment as the chamber's intricate responses confirmed that he was no longer merely a visitor. He had become the focus, the participant, and in some subtle, profound way, the tomb had begun to acknowledge him as one of its own. The pathway of light extended beyond the central chamber and into a corridor unlike anything Ethan had seen since arriving on Kairos 4. The walls no longer displayed static carvings. Instead, streams of soft luminescence flowed beneath translucent panels, moving like rivers beneath ice. Every few seconds, symbols surfaced within the glowing currents before vanishing again into the depths of the structure. Ethan walked slowly, his boots producing almost no sound against the smooth metallic floor. Somewhere ahead, hidden beyond layers of ancient architecture, a low harmonic tone echoed through the corridor. It was not loud. It did not demand attention, yet it seemed impossible to ignore. Lysera walked beside him, reviewing the readings on her scanner for the 10th time. Each result only deepened her confusion. "Nothing makes sense," she admitted. "The energy signatures are changing every few seconds. It is as though the entire structure is reorganizing itself around you." Ethan glanced at the nearest wall. As soon as he looked at it, several symbols brightened. "I'm starting to think it is doing exactly that." Before Lysera could answer, the corridor widened into a circular chamber nearly 100 feet across. Unlike the previous rooms, this one appeared almost empty. The walls were smooth. The ceiling disappeared into darkness high above. At the center stood a single platform surrounded by concentric rings embedded in the floor. Ethan immediately noticed that every illuminated pathway inside the chamber converged on that platform. The tomb wanted him there. He approached cautiously. As soon as his foot crossed the outer ring, a soft pulse of light spread outward through the floor. Another followed. Then another. The entire chamber awakened. Lines of silver energy traced across the walls like lightning moving in slow motion. Panels opened silently overhead. Hundreds of tiny lights appeared across the ceiling, forming a perfect map of the stars. Ethan stopped moving. He recognized several constellations immediately. Earth's sky, not modern Earth. Ancient Earth. The positions were wrong. Thousands of years wrong. Lysera stared upward. "Impossible." Ethan nodded slowly. "Those stars have not looked like that for a very long time." The chamber seemed to respond to his voice. The starlight shifted. New patterns emerged. Entire solar systems appeared among the projections. Routes connected them. Vast networks stretched across the galaxy. Trade routes, exploration paths, colonies, civilizations. Ethan felt a strange sensation in his chest. Not recognition exactly. Something deeper. Familiarity. As though he had seen these maps before in a memory he did not possess. The soft, synthetic voice returned. This time it carried more clarity than before. Verification sequence continuing. Lysera immediately activated her recorder. Verification of what? She asked aloud. There was no response. The voice ignored her completely. Ethan stepped closer to the center platform. The glowing rings around him intensified. Then images began to appear. Not holograms. Memories. A young child helping another stand. A crew sharing supplies during a harsh journey. Scientists exchanging knowledge with strangers. Explorers crossing unknown frontiers. None of the scenes contained conflict. None displayed power or conquest. They showed cooperation, compassion, trust. Ethan watched silently. The voice spoke again. Assessment parameters, empathy, sacrifice, stewardship, unity. Lysera lowered her scanner. It is not evaluating strength. Ethan slowly shook his head. No. The final image appeared above the platform. A single figure standing before a vast crowd, offering an open hand rather than a command. The chamber fell silent. Seconds passed. Then the voice delivered a statement that made both of them freeze. Core values confirmed. Compatibility exceeds expected threshold. The lights throughout the room brightened at once. Far beyond the chamber walls, somewhere deep within the structure, ancient systems began activating one after another. Ethan felt the vibrations beneath his feet. The tomb was not simply recognizing him anymore. It was reaching a conclusion. As the luminescent rings on the platform subsided, Ethan felt the subtle shift in the chamber's atmosphere, a change so delicate that it could have been mistaken for a trick of the light. The maps, constellations, and sequences of memory faded into a soft glow along the walls, leaving the chamber bathed in a gentle ambient light that seemed to pulse in rhythm with the low hum of the structure itself. Lysera took a cautious step forward, her golden eyes reflecting the patterns of illumination, her tablet recording every minute fluctuation of energy. It is preparing for something, she said quietly, almost to herself. Ethan nodded, feeling a similar sense of anticipation, a quiet expectation that this space, ancient and vast, had waited to reveal more than simple recognition. The central platform projected a faint haze of shimmering light above it, forming an outline of a humanoid figure that flickered between clarity and abstraction, as if struggling to become tangible within the chamber. Ethan stepped closer, drawn toward the outline, sensing that it was a guide, a message from the intelligence embedded in the tomb. As he approached, the light coalesced, revealing a figure wearing ceremonial attire similar to what he had seen in the carvings along the corridor walls, a figure whose posture exuded calm authority, whose gesture was of open invitation rather than command. The voice returned, softer this time, more deliberate, carrying a tone that resonated in the marrow of his bones. You have understood the principles. You have followed the path with awareness, patience, and thoughtfulness. Now, the bridge between past and present can be crossed. Ethan took a deep breath and placed both hands lightly upon the edge of the platform. A tingling warmth spread up his arms, through his chest, and settled into his core. The light responded, rippling outward to the walls and floor, tracing new pathways, patterns of movement, symbols previously unseen, as if connecting him to the full architecture of the tomb. Lysera observed with wide eyes, noting that the pulses of energy, the shifting luminescence, and the subtle vibrations beneath their feet all intensified in a synchronized rhythm. She realized that Ethan's presence, his deliberate actions, and the choices he had made during the previous sequence had aligned perfectly with the tomb's criteria. The soft voice spoke again, highlighting each word clearly within the chamber. You are acknowledged. The continuity of understanding is verified. Your values correspond with those of those who built this place. Compatibility confirmed. Ethan's chest tightened. He felt a connection, a recognition that transcended physical space, as if the tomb itself had reached into the continuum of time to measure him against the ideals it had preserved. Panels along the walls displayed abstract patterns that seemed to reflect his own thoughts and intentions, each motion, pause, and breath mirrored in light. The maps of stars and civilizations returned briefly, this time overlaid with new routes and markers, sequences that represented knowledge, stewardship, and the careful progression of cultures across the galaxy. Ethan realized that he was no longer merely observing. He was participating. Every decision, every step had been measured, acknowledged, and integrated into the structure's record. Lysera moved closer, whispering in awe. It has never responded to anyone like this before. Ethan exhaled slowly, feeling a calm clarity settle over him, and understanding that this intelligence, ancient and vast, had deemed him worthy not through strength or dominance, but through perception, consideration, and respect. The chamber seemed to relax in response, the lights softening to a gentle glow, the vibrations settling into a steady, welcoming rhythm. Ethan understood now that he had crossed the first true threshold of recognition, a subtle but profound acknowledgement that he had been accepted not only as a visitor, but as a participant in the enduring continuum of the tomb's purpose, an extension of its own memory and legacy. Lysera's hand lightly brushed his shoulder, and for the first time, Ethan felt the full weight and quiet gravity of the chamber's silent approval. The subtle warmth from the central platform spread throughout the chamber, filling the air with a sensation that was neither oppressive nor light, but undeniably present, as though the very walls exhaled with acknowledgement. Ethan felt it first in his chest, a steady pulse that seemed to synchronize with the gentle hum of the tomb itself. He glanced at Lysera, whose eyes reflected awe and careful calculation, her golden gaze moving over the panels and illuminated pathways that had reorganized subtly since their last interaction. "It is opening more than just pathways," she whispered. "It is showing us possibilities." Ethan nodded, stepping toward a newly illuminated corridor that had appeared beyond the central dais. The floor beneath him responded to each step with a delicate, almost imperceptible movement, guiding his weight along the illuminated patterns, a silent instruction without force or pressure. As he walked, the walls displayed sequences of light that resembled stories, scenes of civilizations that had once traversed this galaxy. Ethan could make out figures sharing knowledge, building structures, and navigating the stars. None of it was chaotic. Every movement, every gesture, every construction was deliberate, purposeful, yet harmonious. The tomb was revealing a vision of history that had not been recorded anywhere else, a history that intertwined human ingenuity with alien understanding in ways that defied conventional timelines. Lysera followed closely, her scanner capturing readings that shifted with each step, indicating subtle energy fluctuations that correlated with the light patterns. "The core systems are engaging with you directly," she murmured. Ethan paused before a circular chamber that had not been visible moments before. The air was still, the hum steady, and the light flowed in concentric rings that converged on a pedestal at the center. Tiny motes of luminescence drifted upward, tracing invisible currents through the air, forming intricate geometric shapes that expanded and contracted rhythmically. He approached the pedestal carefully, feeling a sense of expectation settle over him, a quiet insistence that he align himself with the chamber's flow. When his hands rested on the edge of the pedestal, the light responded immediately, radiating outward in waves that wrapped the chamber in a dynamic lattice of energy. The soft synthetic voice returned, articulate and deliberate, carrying a tone that was both informative and reverent. History observed. Continuity verified. Stewardship acknowledged. Ethan exhaled, the words resonating deep within him. The walls shimmered as new images appeared. Explorers navigating star maps, communities cooperating to overcome natural challenges, and individuals making decisions that prioritized understanding and harmony over personal gain. Each scene was a lesson, a reflection, and a subtle test. Ethan realized that the tomb's intention was not to challenge physically, but to observe and measure character, choice, and alignment with principles far beyond the immediate moment. Lysera stepped closer, her voice low. "It is teaching, not testing for strength, but for wisdom, empathy, and judgment." Ethan nodded, feeling a profound connection with the intelligence embedded in the structure, as if centuries of observation and understanding had converged into this moment, acknowledging his presence, his intentions, and his willingness to engage with the ancient purpose of the tomb. He sensed that every action, every thought, and every breath he took was part of a greater assessment, a continuum that reached far beyond the physical confines of the chamber, linking him to the wisdom and legacy preserved within the vast expanse of the tomb. The energy pulsed more steadily now, a gentle affirmation, and Ethan understood that he was crossing a threshold, not of danger or conquest, but of understanding, a first step into the profound relationship between human presence and the ancient intelligence that had waited patiently for recognition. The chamber grew still in a way that felt deliberate, almost contemplative, as Ethan stepped back from the central platform, the light dimming slightly around him, yet remaining luminous enough to outline every surface. The symbols that had guided him now lingered faintly in the air, shimmering as if acknowledging the conclusion of the previous assessment. Lysera adjusted her tablet, recording the subtle fluctuations in energy, and looked toward Ethan with an expression that mixed awe with careful calculation. "It is about to reveal something," she murmured. Ethan nodded, feeling a gentle vibration beneath his feet that spread slowly outward, as though the tomb itself was breathing. From the walls, sequences of light began to flow in patterns far more intricate than before, forming images not of landscapes or star charts, but of events, moments in time that seemed to stretch across millennia. Ethan observed figures, humans and aliens alike, engaged in acts of cooperation, moments of innovation, and shared discovery. There was no conflict, no aggression, only the quiet pursuit of knowledge, harmony, and stewardship. The soft voice spoke again, this time carrying a note of reverence. "The heritage of those who came before is preserved in action, in thought, and in intent. Recognition is not granted for might, but for alignment with purpose and principle." Ethan felt a chill that was not cold, a sensation that resonated through his chest and settled in his core. He realized the tomb was revealing the origin of the values it had been preserving for countless generations. Lysera stepped beside him, her voice barely above a whisper. "It is showing us that humans were not intruders, but inheritors." Ethan's gaze followed a stream of light that coalesced into a sequence depicting a human figure, much like himself, standing at the threshold of an ancient chamber, extending a hand not to dominate, but to guide, to support, and to enable others to flourish. The voice continued. "The lineage of human endeavor spans beyond current memory. You are the continuation, not an anomaly." Ethan's heart quickened as he understood the significance. The tomb recognized a connection between past and present, between human ingenuity and the enduring principles of stewardship, empathy, and collaboration that the builders had valued. Panels along the walls rotated slowly, forming an arc that encircled him, highlighting the key moments that reflected these values. Each moment, each choice, and each decision depicted through light seemed to acknowledge not only human potential, but human responsibility. Lysera's eyes widened as she observed the patterns. Her voice was steady but carried an undercurrent of disbelief. "It is more than a record. It is a message, a trust bestowed upon those who understand." Ethan felt a weight, not of expectation, but of quiet responsibility, settling over him. He realized that every step he had taken, every action he had made with intention and awareness, had been woven into the chamber's acknowledgement. The voice concluded, soft and deliberate. "The human presence is validated. Stewardship and principle confirmed. Alignment achieved." Ethan exhaled slowly, allowing the realization to wash over him. The tomb had not only recognized him as worthy, it had revealed a deeper truth. Humans, through their choices and values, were part of a legacy that extended far beyond the visible stars, and their role was not to conquer, but to continue, preserve, and honor the principles that had endured across time. Lysera's hand rested lightly on his arm, and for the first time, Ethan felt the full magnitude of the tomb's quiet affirmation, understanding that he was not merely a visitor or observer, but a link in the chain of an ancient and enduring heritage. The chamber settled into a profound quiet, the soft glow of the walls and the floor illuminating the vast space in a gentle radiance that seemed almost like dawn breaking across a vast desert. Ethan stepped back from the central platform, feeling the subtle energy beneath his feet shift once more, a silent acknowledgement that his presence had been fully integrated into the tomb's awareness. Lysera walked beside him, her eyes tracing the intricate pathways of light that had begun to extend outward, reaching toward the outer corridors and distant chambers, as if the tomb itself were awakening from a long slumber. The soft, synthetic voice returned, calm and deliberate, filling the space with words that resonated with clarity and weight. Integration complete. Stewardship recognized. The continuity of values preserved. Ethan felt a deep sense of responsibility settle over him, a quiet understanding that he was no longer just an observer, but a participant in a continuum that spanned millennia. The walls shifted slightly, revealing a panorama of stars beyond the sealed exterior of the tomb, constellations that had long since changed in the night sky, and yet they appeared here, intact and precise, a record of time preserved. Ethan's breath caught as he realized the tomb was offering him a vision of the galaxy not as it was now, but as it had been shaped through careful, thoughtful action across countless generations. Lysera stepped closer, her hand lightly brushing his arm, and whispered, "It is showing the legacy you are part of. The choices, the care, the guidance that must continue." Ethan nodded slowly, taking in the vast, silent beauty of the chamber and the patterns of light that danced across the walls, floors, and ceiling. Streams of luminescence converged in the center, forming shapes that suggested not dominance or power, but cooperation, empathy, and shared stewardship. The final message of the tomb echoed through the chamber, not loud, but felt deep in the chest. The past is preserved. The present is honored. The future entrusted to those who walk with understanding. Ethan exhaled, feeling a calm certainty wash over him. He understood that his journey had not been about discovery alone, nor about achievement, but about recognition, alignment, and the quiet affirmation of values that transcended time. The outer doors of the chamber, previously sealed and imposing, slid open silently, revealing the night sky above Karos 4, the twin moons casting silver light over the dunes beyond. Ethan stepped forward onto the soft sand outside, Lysera following, both of them bathed in the subtle glow of the tomb behind them. The hum and pulse of the tomb faded gradually, leaving a serene silence that spoke of endurance, wisdom, and the quiet dignity of legacy. Ethan glanced back once, noting how the luminescent paths within had dimmed but remained, a testament to understanding and acknowledgement. He turned to Lysera, and in that silent exchange, they both felt the weight of what had occurred, the unspoken truth that humanity, through awareness, thoughtfulness, and respect, had been recognized by an intelligence older than memory itself. The stars reflected faintly in their eyes, and for the first time in his life, Ethan felt entirely at home within the vast, enduring expanse of the galaxy.